starts here, where the future is being made. In Sohar Port and Free Zone, an important crossroads for key trade routes in Asia and Europe, and where it is easy to reach the biggest markets in the region through sea, land, and air, and home for leading local and foreign industrial investments, enabling an integrated logistics system designed to facilitate international trade through cutting-edge technologies. Sohar is a global logistics hub that hosts Sohar Port, a one-of-a-kind global port equipped with deep water jetties capable of handling the world's biggest vessels, transferring goods and raw materials to and from the free zone in record time, forming together the only trade and logistics hub of its kind in the region. Goods and materials travel from here to millions of people around the world. These goods range from natural resources to petrochemicals, and from industrial products to food. All of that is achieved through our continuously improved logistics and technical solutions. It is a never-ending endeavor that inspires us to accelerate the growth of our carrying capacity, and inspires us every day to improve our energy efficiency and production through the use of renewable resources, while keeping our working environment equally safe and attractive to the best talents. We are driven by an immense passion to excellence, one that makes us one of the fastest growing ports and free zones in the world. We aspire to attract more investment and rewarding partnerships, where we work for our partner success in every possible way. Sustainability is at the heart of our business. So is our commitment to Oman Vision 2040. Sohar is surrounded by pristine nature and culturally rich communities, a place to call home. Here is to making strides towards becoming the logistics hub of the future. It all starts here. Sohar Port and Free Zone.
A really quick glimpse on what Sohar Port and Free Zone has to offer in terms of facilities, services, and world standards. And to know more about all of these from Sohar Port and Free Zone, its strategic advantages, offerings, and value proposition to your business, we have Mr. Robert Bartsra, Executive Manager Commercial of Sohar Port and Free Zone. On to you, Robert.
Sorry, thank you very much, Sami. Just need to find the unmute button. Welcome, everybody, also from me. I really appreciate that so many people have joined on our first webinar on food for thought. As was mentioned, we have a number of speakers. I'm one. Sophie, my colleague, will be hopefully talking more in detail about the food area. And we also have a couple of our tenants, I should say, our valued tenants, who will share some thoughts that they have about their business and how things are going in Sohar. My view is a little bit that I've been in Oman quite a while, and I see that India is everywhere in Oman. The trade relationship between India and Oman are visible everywhere, not just in Sohar, but all over Oman. And I'll get back to that. But in a way, it was already mentioned in the video. Sohar is connected to many ports across the world, but also to a number of ports in India, and we're very close. We're just 2 hours flying away, 3 days by ship. We are connected in such a way that more than 20% of the population in Oman is actually Indian. So last year, for instance, 2020, the trade volumes between India and Oman was more than $6 billion US, quite substantial for a country like Oman, which is reasonably small in terms of population. We have about 4.5 million people here. compared to India, that's of course nothing. We have more than 4,000 joint ventures, Indian joint ventures in Oman. We have an investment of more than $7 billion by Indian companies in Oman. And actually since the last 5 years, since 2016, we've seen more than 1,300 new companies coming into Oman from India with an estimated investment of more than $1 billion. So we're close. We're physically close and culturally close and also financially close. You saw the movie in the video, and as Sami announced, it depends a little bit on the connection if it's easy to see but one of the things that I find very nice to mention always is that we, Sohar, we are an integrated port and free zone. And you might say, well, okay, what's so important about that? Well, it's quite unique in the area. There's no other entity in the Middle East that is having one single management for its port and its free zone. And that makes, of course, it easy to organize our business, to organize our logistics. And we pride ourselves that any business, any cargo that comes into our port only takes less than 15 minutes to go to the free zone and vice versa. Our port and our free zone are connected by a bonded corridor. It's the free zone is just behind the port, 5-6 kilometers behind the port, and there's a bonded corridor, so there's no issues of going onto the main road. It's all connected, and like I said, it's under one management, and that makes a big difference. We of course have a value proposition, and I'm sure you will see these slides later. And I wanted to highlight a few things that I think are nice and important and somewhat unique. I mean, we are located, as you saw on the map, just outside of the Strait of Hormuz, opposite India, so very close. But what is unique about Oman, I think, over the years, it's proven again and again and again that Oman is a very stable country to invest in. We have very good connectivity across the world. We have raw materials, and not just raw materials in terms of, let's say, minerals, but also in terms of food stock, feedstock for food. We have flour, grain, soybean, sugar, all these kind of basic feedstocks for food production is here in Oman now. In our port and our free zone, what we do is when we get new customers, we really discuss with them what they want to do, and we want to give them a tailor-made advice through our one-stop shop service. So we even have customers where we say, listen, it's probably better if you go into another area because this is not for you. But our port and our free zone staff are there. They help evaluate the business plan. They can connect you with banks. They can connect you with other investors if necessary. And they basically take away all the work for you in terms of licenses, permits. For instance, if we have to do environmental impact assessment, there'll be assistance on that side. Another thing is, if you look at the right of this slide, you'll see that we have this Deepsea Terminal. So we have 3 terminals. We have a container terminal, a bulk terminal, a liquids terminal, and we have access for all the ships in the world, basically. Up to 25 meters depth is available in our port. In our free zone, we have warehouse solutions. We have 5 warehouse developers, and one of our warehouse developers is actually here today with us, and you'll hear from him later. And what is really nice is that, mentioned in the video as well, is that we're quite young. So we're still developing, we're still growing, and we've got the latest technologies available in our port and in our free zone. Also, something people don't realize often is that we, in Oman, we have a free trade agreement with the US, and we have a number of customers in our port and in our free zone who take advantage of that. So they've specifically come to Oman to set up their business because of the free trade agreement between Oman and the US. And one of our staff is actually, was involved hands-on in setting up this free trade agreement. So if you have interest in that area, she can help you with advice. Another system under the header of ecosystem, I should say, is that we have industrial clusters in our port and in our free zone. What does that mean? Well, we have, for instance, a petrochemical cluster, we have a metals cluster, we have logistics cluster, and we have a food cluster. And that helps to optimize our business and to learn from each other. Another advantage I notice that customers like is that we have stable electricity, we have option of gas supply, and now also we have solar energy opportunities. So we have Shell, the energy company, that provides to dedicated customers up to 25 megawatts of solar energy. So that's quite substantial. So in short, in our free zone, we have, as mentioned, 45 square kilometers of space, of which 500 hectares has now been leased out. In our free zone, you get 25 years of corporate tax holiday, so no tax. There's also no personal income tax. There's 100% foreign ownership. It's basically, the free zone is a bit of an island within Oman. That's the setup. So if I come back to the Indian side, which I find quite fascinating, is that in terms of the Indian connection, we have 1/3 of our companies in Sohar are Indian. And they've brought almost $700 million of investment. So if you look at the employees in our port, in our free zone, it's almost 2/3 of the employees are from Indian origin. And we have a number of companies in our port and our free zone that I won't mention them all, and you might recognize some of them anyway. We have FICCI, who are doing a cotton yarn factory. They've been here for 4 years now. Jindal Shadid, it's been here almost from the beginning in the port, doing steel, iron. Misco, also Moon Steel, they're called. Also steel company. Larsen Toubro, they're doing offshore installation projects, and I can name a few more, but I won't in the consideration of the time. Now, the other thing you see in Sohar, but also in all of Oman, I guess, is the Indian culture, as I mentioned. I mean, the cuisine, the Indian cuisine is favored by most Omanis and expats alike. So it's there. But cricket has been brought to Oman. We have Indian schools, we have international schools, we are celebrating Indian festivities, Diwali, etc. It's all happening also here. So just to say that I think coming to Oman is for most people, it's like coming home. So we would now, especially now that COVID is slightly under control, I'm saying slightly, I'm really hoping to see a lot of Indian colleagues either coming from India, or we go to India and meet them there. So if I go back to the port, just a bit of pride from our side. We have a number of ports in Oman, but Sohar port is the main point of entry for food imports into Oman. It's a fact. We import most materials into Oman. Like I mentioned, we have a really good container terminal, which is operated by a world-class operator from Hong Kong, Hutchison. We have a dedicated agri-bulk berth, about which one of our guest speakers, I should say, is going to tell us a little bit more later, because that's quite unique also in this area. We have a flour mill, we have grain silos, we have an oilseed crushing plant under development, and we're building a sugar refinery. So like I said, all the basic ingredients for food are with us in our own port and free zone. The other thing I want to mention is that we also have in our port some free space that we've just made available, which we call Sohar Port East. And that's a piece of land which has access to the sea with 18-meter draft. And we're going to build berths, quay walls there. So any food logistics company who wants to settle there is welcome. Then in the free zone, like I said, quite a big complex, still growing. Phase 2 is now in development. We're developing there about 700 hectares of new space. We have warehousing, we have 3PL logistics, we have downstream activities. We have several food trading companies in our port. Our colleagues from Al-Hosn will talk about the cold storage, I hope, in a short while, or we'll interrogate him about it anyway, Sami, don't forget. And we have also in the port and the free zone, we have a dedicated food cluster. And I would also like to mention that that's quite interesting as well. I find that in the port, we have a petrochemical complex, which as from this year is producing 1.5 million tons of polypropylene and polyethylene. And for the knowledgeable people under us, they know that this is needed for making packaging materials. So we're really keen to also look at opportunities for companies that come and package their foodstuffs in Sohar and then send it across the world. Likewise, we have next to our port, we have an aluminium smelter that produces aluminium and from which cans can be made also for packaging. So all in all, we are looking for more investments, of course, and we're happy to discuss that with you. We're an ideal base for food companies, especially if you're looking for a hub to bring in your raw materials, fabricate something out of it, so to speak, and then export it across the Middle East or to the rest of the world. That's what we're looking for, ideally. So with that, I'm going to give the mic back to Sami. Thank you very much for joining again, and I hope to speak soon.
Thank you very much, Robert. And on a daily basis, especially after the past year, I'm really thankful for the connectivity that we have, especially with Sohar. And as we've seen, although with the interruption that was there, my daily food needs were not interrupted. And that's really important in the business going forward as well. And to delve more into the food cluster at Sohar Port and Free Zone and food development in Oman and the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, we have Sophie Talk, Cluster Development Manager at Sohar Port and Free Zone. On to you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sami, for your kind introduction. I hope my slides are up as well. Everything technically okay. So today I will talk to you in more detail about the developments in the food industry in the GCC and specifically Oman. And this is also with the aim to identify business opportunities for the Indian food and beverage companies that join us in this webinar. So let's first take a look at some statistics. So I would like to emphasize again how the GCC market in total is highly dependent on imported food items. So the GCC has a huge trade deficit and it relies for 60 to 70% on food imports. This alone is already an opportunity, I guess, for Indian food and beverage companies, because you can also reach over 60 million consumers in this region. If we take, for example, 2019 to say as a reference to a normal year, the GCC has imported over 55 million tons of food items. This is from worldwide, and this is only the sea carried, so ocean carried volume. So this does not take into account what comes in via air into the region and also not via land borders. So of this 55 million tons, which is an incredible amount, about half is cereals, grains, and wheat. So that's a large volume going into the region. But also animal feed, definitely vegetables and fruits are high volumes. In this list, unfortunately, I didn't have the volume for edible oils. It's also quite a high volume imported. And also sugar, dairy, eggs, meat, all type of food products coming in. The largest volumes in the GCC are imported by Saudi Arabia, about 26 million tons, and by the UAE, so the Emirates, about 16 million tons. And Oman and Kuwait are, say, similar in size, market size, with imports of over 4 million tons in 2019. So these markets seem like Oman is smaller. On the other hand, you can reach, from Oman, you can reach the other consumers in the GCC by road quite easily. For example, Dubai, from Sohar, Dubai is only a 3-hour drive. Actually zooming into Oman and then focusing on the trade with India. We have seen clearly also throughout the pandemic that India has been a true partner and very reliable source for food import into Oman. So we see the strong relationship, the strong food trade relationship between Oman and India, and that has not changed in the last 1.5 years. If we look at the numbers, this is only in container units, so in TEU. In 2020, Oman imported from India around 16,000 TEU in container units. So this is not taking into account what comes in bulk or what comes in either by trucking or flying or other modes of transport. So the largest volumes that we as Oman import from India are definitely vegetables and fruit. And if you look at the vegetables, it's mainly onion and potatoes. On the fruit side, we import a lot of tropical fruits such as mango, guava, pomegranate, but also grapes, for example. Traditionally, India exports coffee, tea, and spices, also dairy and meat. That is all being exported to Oman. Looking at the meat volume, I'm sorry, I forget rice. Of course, rice is an important volume and is something that Omanis eat, preferably, I think, twice a day. So that is definitely also an important volume to consider. Looking into meat, that was traditionally a large volume, especially poultry, also buffalo meat and goat and sheep meat from India is definitely consumed in Oman. We did see the volume in poultry going down since 2019, and that is because Oman started to produce poultry domestically. So you see an effect on that, but other meat items are still imported. So if we see what is already in the fruit trade happening, right, between Oman and India, maybe we can take a look again at the region and see what trends and developments are happening over there and see how this influences, but also brings opportunity for food investment. So if we look at the GCC as a region, more than 70% of the sale in food is done via retail, so via the large hypermarkets, which means they have a large influence on the food supply chain. Aside from the large hypermarkets and large chains like Carrefour and Nesto, and also the Indian-owned Lulu Group, you see a lot of small size players in the region as well. A lot of consolidation within the retail market is expected. So for the food market, the retailers are a very essential part of the supply chain. They usually use logistics, so local logistic suppliers for both trucking and warehousing. So that is also an important a part of getting the food from the main distribution centers to the smaller supermarkets throughout the region. If we look at the population in the GCC, it's a lot of young population. Some of the GCC countries have a high percentage of expats. They're young couples with a busy working life, also definitely looking for convenient food solutions. So actually there is a high demand for packaged food in this region. On the other hand, we also see Obesity is starting to be an issue in this region, and also there's more awareness of a healthy lifestyle. So the trend towards eating healthier, but also maybe vegetarian or vegan options is also becoming prominent, which can pose definitely an opportunity for Indian food companies to maybe play a role in this new trend in this region, and also fill in the demand for healthy or organic products. So as we discussed earlier, and especially I guess during the pandemic, it became very clear to many GCC countries that they have a high dependency on imports. This also means that most of these GCC countries are aiming for food security. So they have national programs, for example, to build silos or infrastructure to keep like stock of like the basic amount of food products for its own population. But it also means they are investing in food production in their own country. So in Oman, for example, we've seen an influx in food production in poultry, in eggs, also in dairy. So those are national pushed projects, but it will always be open, for other international investors to take a part in it, or to maybe join in for knowledge sharing. So definitely also we're very open to discuss anybody that can join in for food production. Same goes for example, agricultural production. So maybe going into vertical farming and have like specific technical solutions, because in Oman, of course, the weather and the soil conditions are a little bit different than in India, than most parts in India. Still, with high technology farms, we could produce fresh produce also in Oman, and we're very welcome to also have investors in that sector. Throughout the GCC, but especially in Oman, we still see sort of an underdevelopment or a lack of cold chain logistics. So which leads actually to still a lot of food wastage, but also higher costs. So there, specifically in Oman, there is a high shortage of a large shortage of cold storage capacity, cold trucking, cold chain services. So making sure that a temperature controlled product will reach the consumer in a good state. I know that India is very large, has a lot of cold storage capacity, has many companies specialized in that, either by equipment or investments in India. We welcome the cold chain investors very much into Oman to further develop that here. Final trend and development is digitization innovation. That could mean young population is now also looking into e-commerce, buying their foodstuff online. Also, within the food industry, we are looking at tracking and tracing of food. So this is definitely a trend that will be continuing for the coming years. So I guess this triggers you hopefully to look further into opportunities in this region. Going back to Sohar, I would really like to just highlight a few of the last opportunities that actually we have in Sohar. So as also Robert explained, what we have available in Sohar in the port is a very efficient container terminal operated by Hutchison. We have a dedicated agro-berth with a very efficient handling. We have food processing in the port, for example, done by Sohar Flour Mills, who is also introduced later in the panel. We have warehousing solutions, amongst others. We're very happy to welcome Al-Hosn with the first cold storage in our free zone. And we have logistics service providers in the country, and Kimji Ramdas I wanted to mention, because that is, of course, an Indian-owned company. They have a lot of operations in Sohar and in Oman. So if we look at the actual opportunities for Indian investments, of course, we have food trade already going on, but we hope to see an increase in the trade between our countries. What definitely could be an opportunity is food production, also mentioned by Robert. So this could be, pasta, beverages, bread or confectionery, you name it. I think it will be very beneficial to start processing in Sohar and then distribute into the GCC, but also think of other export markets like Africa, upcoming markets in Africa. Again, I mentioned the cold chain, so we are very open for investments in food, efficient food storage and food services. For example, food packaging. A lot of packaging materials in Oman are still imported. So even a company that would invest in offering packaging services and using the raw materials available in Sohar are very much welcomed. So yeah, that's it from my side. I really hope to welcome more Indian food and beverage companies into Oman. If there are any specific questions, you can always reach out to us. We are here to assist you and help you start your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sophie. And that is brilliant. And the opportunities are ample, as we're going to hear from the panel discussion we're going to have soon. So again, thank you very much, Sophie. And a reminder to our attendees that both presentations will be shared with you if you have registered for the session, post the session, inshallah. And if you have any questions specifically, either for Sophie or Robert or anything related to Sohar Port and Free Zone, you can post them in the Q&A feature. Going on to the panel discussion, we have two of Sohar's key stakeholders, like Robert mentioned, from the food industry specifically, or catering to the food industry. And to talk about food warehousing, cold storage, and logistics is Ibrahim Al-Kharousi, who has over 21 years of experience in business development, sales, public relations, and client relationship management. Ibrahim has demonstrated his abilities in handling and driving sales across hospitality, maritime, retail, and commercial industrial sectors. He currently holds the position of Business Development Manager at Al-Hosn Logistics and Warehousing Services. Ibrahim, if we could have a couple of minutes to introduce the organization that you represent to our audience.
Thank you, Sami. I represent Al-Hosn Logistics Company, which is a 100% subsidiary company owned by the mother company Al-Hosn Investment. We have basically invested in 5 acres and around 22,000 square meters of built-up areas of warehousing facilities and services, including 21 chambers of cold warehousing facilities here in Sohar. We have just completed this new project of a state-of-art warehousing comprising 21 chambers of cold warehousing units, vary from 100 square meters to 112 square meters for the investors. Actually, HIC work on 3 different pillars, which is food securities, logistics, and hospitality. And we are actually here looking for opportunities to exchange the knowledge, expertise, business with the Indian side and the Indian party as well. We want to highlight our facilities and services and all the offerings in general. Thank you for having me here. I hope we will be for you here as good as you're looking for.
The grilling questions are there. Don't worry about it, Ibrahim. And we go to agri-bulk and food processing opportunities. We have Raed Al-Rabi'i, CEO of Sohar Flour Mill and Oilseed Crushing Company. Raed is a highly accomplished executive with more than 18 years of domestic and international experience in aluminum, oil and gas, food and petrochemical industries. He has an impressive history of building agile and lean organizations, and Raed has a proven record of driving operational excellence using lean manufacturing, Six Sigma methodology, and asset management techniques. Raed, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much, Sami, and thank you for the introduction. And it's always helpful to help investors from sharing information and feedback. Let me introduce Sohar Flour Mill to the audience. Sohar Flour Mill was established in 2017 with the objective to build a world-class flour mill business, which can produce all the way from the basic flour to the high premium flour. We're using the technology provided by Puller from Switzerland, And we have almost the highest technology at the moment available in the Middle East. So this addition, which happened in 2017, it's the latest technology on the flour milling business. We have also 160,000 tons of storage capacity, silo capacity for grains. And that's also a company, we have also an offloading facility that's provided from Germany, from Nuero, that is capable of offloading 1,200 tons per hour of grains from the vessels. We talked about also the agri bulk terminal. So our company is placed on the berth, and our process is very efficient. So we receive the grains and then we process it, and also we can export it directly. That's one of the projects we're holding at the moment. We also in development of another project, which is called Oman Oilseeds, which is focused more on the oilseeds processing. So we're building a world-class oilseeds processing that will be processing soya beans and canola beans, and with a capacity of 1 million ton per year. We'll be crushing, extracting, refining, bottling edible oil, and we're targeting different markets. India is one of the targeted markets, and I'm happy to share as much information with the Indian counterparties, and we hope that we can help you to answer some of the questions you have.
Now, starting with you, Raed, like Sohar Flour Mills has a truly world-class state food facility in Oman, state-of-the-art as a facility. Can you please explain why did Sohar Flour Mills choose Sohar as the location?
The very good question, Sami. Any investor, when we come to invest, we look first into the advantage. What kind of advantage we can, we can secure for our businesses so that we can compete on local and from international perspective. So when we came to the investment of Sohar Flour Mill, we looked into how we can be a player on the global market. We understand that the local market, there's a gap, and Sophia, I think, highlighted the numbers and shows that there's a very good gap of import which we can fill. But our ambitious and our target is always also to serve the global market. So why Oman? I think it's very public knowledge now to know that Oman and Sohar is located perfectly between the Asian market and the European market. And having a world-class container terminal, that's another thing which has helped us really to make the decision, because we want our product to reach to different markets. So that really was one of the advantages. On top of that, having our own agro terminal, that really made a huge amount of efficiency when it comes to the handling, because we receive our grains, we receive our vessels, which can take up to 100,000 tons of grains. We can offload it into our bulk terminal, process it, and then send it back to the export market using our own terminal. That's one thing. The other thing, I think also Sophie mentioned that we are very close to the rest of the GCC. So it's very easy for us to reach the markets in UAE, to reach the markets in the rest of the GCC through the roads. And also now the GCC countries building a train network between the different countries, and that really will boost as well, the trade between the different entities. I think also we talked a little bit, maybe I need to mention a little bit that the energy cost, I think Robert a little bit, he mentioned about the energy cost. And that's another thing which helped us to take a decision to build this project and the other project which is upcoming in Sohar. So energy cost is very competitive, and that's helping us also to have that competitive advantage when it comes to competing with international players. And on top of all of that, you need the services. And you need an easy way of doing business. You don't want really to spend a lot of time talking to different entities. The good thing about the Port of Sohar, you have one-stop station in which you can talk to the Port of Sohar as an authority, and then everything is done through that authority. You have the utilities next door, so you can connect to water, you can connect to electricity, you can connect to gas, which really made it a very good competitive advantage for us to build this project in Sohar. So I can talk the whole day, Sami, about why we selected Sohar to this project and many other projects, which is the group company is coming up with. And I think during the discussion, we can share a little bit more information if you guys are interested.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Raed. And going on to Al-Hosn investment group, which is a leading investment company in Oman, contributing to the diversification of Oman's economy, and of course, part of the Vision 2040. One of the sectors that you focus on, Ibrahim, is the food security. Can you please tell the audience more about the strategic food security projects that Al-Hosn Investment Group is involved in?
Well, Al-Hosn Investment is also an Oman Investment Association company with a working capital targeted to food security over $100 million. So HIC has 50% stakes in very well-known companies such as Safa Food, Gulf Mushrooms, and also Mazoon Dairy Company. We actually seek, to find the right partners in the food industry in here, and we actually provide all the different sizes of warehousing facilities over here. And we would like to be considered as, the partners of the free zone and the arm of the free zone that's providing the warehousing services for any potential investors or anyone who wants to invest in here. Now, in major investors here, we would like to get to know them, and we'd like to contribute into this particular city to become a hub tomorrow for a logistic area. And Al-Hosn actually is the first company to invest in cold warehousing facilities here in Sohar Free Zone. So we have around 21 numbers of cold chambers, temperature controlled rooms, actually a state of art built with the recent and the most advanced, technologies in here. And people are welcome to come over here and take a look at the facilities that we have in here in the free zone. So that's in general how we are contributing to the food industry here.
Oh, thank you very much. And obviously, Al-Hosn is always open for people approaching to partner, depending on many different opportunities. Now, staying with you, Ibrahim, and speaking about the facilities that you have, especially the warehousing services that you provide, it's an international standard warehouse facility located in Sohar Free Zone, consisting of 14 quality warehouses divided in 36 light manufacturing units with flexible designs, which is really important today. And Al-Hosn is also, like you mentioned, the first company to invest in cold storage in Sohar. And as Robert mentioned earlier after his presentation, can you, Ibrahim, please explain where do you see the opportunities for the Indian food companies in this market, please?
Actually, Robert has already highlighted, and also Ms. Sophie has highlighted a couple of things about the opportunities in Sohar. But in general, for us, I think you can see that Sohar as a city is the heart of the coastal line, the peninsula actually between the Persian Sea and also the south area from Dhofar. So I believe that we as Sohar logistics company, we consider ourselves as the logistics arm that's going to help into contributing to this particular planning for the Sohar facilities. So that's in general in terms of opportunities. But I think the people over here will be talking about all the chances, all the opportunities over there for any investor who wants to make a decision to come over here to Sohar. Of course, he's going to make a decision based on many elements. One of them is the strategic locations. I think also Sophie has talked about the duration of the traveling of the shipment. That is less than 3 days. So this is like an advantage for them to come over here. Plus all the services that are provided over there, and also all the investments that we're making over here. So everything seems to be in order in here.
Thank you, Ibrahim. And going on to one of my main ingredients when it comes to food, that is flour and oil, especially canola. Raed, Sohar Flour Mills has a strong consumer base in the GCC. Not only that, but also an export vision for goods from the region into the African market. Now, also the upcoming oilseed crushing plant can benefit from the access to these new and growing consumer markets from the location that you have. Can you please elaborate on the market potential for your goods in the surrounding markets?
All right, Sami. So our vision was from the beginning that we're not looking only to be a local player. Instead, we are targeting to be a global player. And that's why it was very important for us to be situated in a way we can play that role of international player. So yes, we produce different products, and we've been targeting different markets for different products. Our products has already been exported to the GCC. And as I said, because of that access we have through the road, we've been exporting to UAE, to Qatar. Our product is in KSA and also in Yemen. So currently we are, from Sohar, sending our product to the GCC and some part of the Middle East. And the other side also, East Africa, we already been supplying to Somalia, we're supplying to Tanzania, and we're currently working also with Congo. So yes, we've been targeting different markets, and as the flour business has already been established and it is running as an operation perspective, we already been, on the table of people in East Africa part of the world, and also in the GCC. For the other products, we're targeting different markets, and we also targeting the Indian market, and hopefully you see our product on your table in India, especially when it comes to the edible oil. We're targeting some markets in Asia as well when it comes to the soya meal and the canola meal. Some of our products is targeted for Vietnam and Thailand. And because of the container terminal next door, we are able to send our products in containers to different, different places around the world. When we talk about, the vision we're looking for, our vision is really to, to have our product in different regions. And at the same time, we will be filling the gaps Sophie talked about. That's almost 30% of our target to fill the gap, which is in the GCC and in Oman. And the rest of the product will go to the rest of the world. So yes, we look into East African market, we look into the Asian market. And by the way, currently we're already using some Indian grains. So some of our wheat comes from India, and also some of our barley comes from India. So the relationship with Indian partnership is already there, and also we welcome more and more opportunity in the future when it comes to supply from a supply perspective, or also from finished product perspective.
And it's always the best quality. And I'm really amazed that it's not only East Africa, but the reach is also to West Africa. And my final question is again to you, Ra'ed, as we have talked about the availability of high quality flour, sugar, and edible oils in Sohar, in the food cluster in Sohar, as mentioned in the presentations, and just now from you. From your business point of view, where do you see the opportunities are for Indian investors in Oman?
Okay, I think the opportunity is huge when it comes to the food industry. All the projects we're building at the moment, they are the enablers for many downstream projects. So when it comes to the flour, there's a huge potential for downstream business from flour. So you can talk about biscuits production, you can talk about macaroni production, you can talk about frozen food when it comes to the raw material of flour, like ready doughs and chapati, paratha, which is very common and became very popular in the GCC market nowadays. So there's a huge potential for Indian investors who are already experienced in this field to come and set up either in the port of Sohar or in the free zone, where they can use the raw material from Sohar Flour Mill, and they can add value and produce products that can sell in the local market. Same thing when it comes to the oilseeds. Oilseeds will be producing edible oil and also will be producing feed for animals. So out of the edible oil, there's a huge potential of downstream, which is also being mastered by the Indian partners. So there's a lot of Indian companies who are in the biodiesel business, which is using soya oil today. There's a lot of also Indian companies who are using, who are producing something called lecithin, and that's used in the food industry. And many other products like paint, coating material, where the vegetable oil became a preference when you compare it to the petrochemical and petroleum products. So from the oil industry as well, there's a huge potential. When it comes to the feed, which is the second product which we produce when it comes from the oil seeds, that also can be taken into more value added to produce fish meal. It could be producing also, feed to animal, and that's an opportunity as well when it comes to that perspective. One, which is one of the very important and quick setup can be done, is with regard the agro terminal and the grain capacity which we have at the moment. So currently we have a 160,000 tons of capacity, of storage capacity. This can be used to store different grains like the Indian wheat, and can be used either to process in Oman, or it can be used as well for transshipment. So it can be used as a hub to store the grains and then when it is used, when it is needed in anywhere in the GCC, it can be transported back again from Oman to wherever the second destination. So I think from opportunity perspective, there's a huge opportunities, and we welcome interested parties to contact us through the Port of Sohar, and we can explore all of those opportunities.
Thank you very much, Raad. That is really wonderful and fantastic. Like you mentioned earlier, the partnership, potential people who are interested in partnering and working with both organizations, that is Sohar Flour Mills, or I know that Raad is wearing both hats, even Oilseed Crushing Company, and it's the same with Ibrahim as well. Not only does he represent the logistics and warehousing services for now, there is also Al-Hosn Investment Group. So any interested parties wanting to do business with Oman, with these two important key stakeholders within Sohar Port and Free Zone, please approach the team from Sohar Port and Free Zone. And with this, we reach the end of the panel, the discussion panel. Thank you guys very much. And we're going to check out the Q&A with the questions that we have. These questions are directed to everyone, the panelists and the speakers, the ones who presented from Sohar Port and Free Zone. There's Robert and Sophie, and the first one is to you, Robert, and it's specifically saying, why is Oman's food trade industry so valuable?
Why is it valuable? Well, I think you mentioned it yourself, Sami. Somehow food never stops. You know, we had a huge crisis in the past 1.5 years, and things went bad, some things went good, but food just continues to go. We have a growing population in Oman, but I think more than a growing population in Oman, we have growing access to the rest of the world. And like I think I sort of said it at the end of my presentation, we see successful companies setting up hubs, a hub in Sohar, because of the connectivity to the GCC, but also outside of the GCC. Sophie mentioned East Africa, and I think Raid mentioned the same, but it's not just East Africa. I mean, we go all the way to the US and to South America. We have connections also with South America, with Brazil, and yeah, it seems to be too good an opportunity to not develop further.
That's very true. Thank you very much, Robert. And Sophie, the second question is to you, and specifically the foods cluster. What is the projected growth of the food cluster?
Yeah, thank you, Sami. A very good question. Also, very detailed. Actually, the GCC food market is expected to reach a value of over $5 billion US. So that only indicates that's in the coming 2 years. That is only indicating that the import market is just enormous. And I think that became pretty clear from all the presentations we had today, and also the panelists, that there's quite a huge gap to fill. Also, Raid mentioned that several times. We, of course, see a wish to become less dependent on food imports in the GCC, but we'll never reach that, the regional production will never meet the domestic demand. So either we start investing and we still keep the trade going, of course, and facilitate that trade as much as possible, and we start investing in the production of food more in this region. And I think Oman is quite keen to do that, also to secure a food processing and food production project. So I really want to mention that again. And although Oman might seem a smaller consumer market, we have around 5 million people. Again, it's mentioned, it is sort of a safe and stable country to start your business from, and then reach this higher number of consumers in the surrounding countries, but also re-export from Sohar, for example, to other markets. So I would say the food business keeps on growing, and indeed also, as Robert said, it never stops. We've seen also in pandemic times, food is still a very stable trade. So that is definitely quite a safe investment scenario, if you can say that. So thanks, Sami, for the question, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. And with this, we reach the end of our session. That was brilliant hearing from all of you, specifically talking about the importance of the food cluster and its growth, and how people or the businesses from India can come in and set up in Sohar and do business and reach the international markets as well. So before the handing over to FICCI, a thank you to our panelists, Raed and Ibrahim. Thank you guys very much for being part of this discussion and enriching us with what's available and what can be done for business in general, and specifically the food cluster. And Sophie and Robert, thank you guys very much. And again, to our attendees, we'd like to inform you that the presentations that are presented will be shared with you via email later post session. And on behalf of Sohar Port and Free Zone, to FICCI, thank you very much to Mr. Alok and Mr. Gautam as well, if he's still with us. Yes, he is. And we hope everything is well after the rain. Thank you very much for this partnership, the valuable partnership that we have with the business community in India. And we are hopeful that there will be more partnerships going forward, inshallah. And on to you, Mr. Alok, for the closure. If you're still with us, or Mr. Gautam.
Thank you, Sami. Thank you very much. Sorry, apologies to everyone for joining late. Was a sudden change in weather, and we were all stuck in traffic today. But anyway, I mean, it was a fantastic and a very good webinar, very informative, quite interesting facts coming up. And we all know that Oman is the second home for Indians. So whether it is with $600 million of cumulative investments or 1,300 union units, there, or we are, celebrating all our festivals. Our food is very popular. The culture is very well accepted, both in India as your culture and our culture. It's a mutual friendship and understanding. And of course, Indian basmati rice, so to say, is very famous in Oman. So that is the bulk of our exports there. And of course, competing with it these days, what I see is the animal feed. This is one product which is really gaining a lot of popularity and finding a lot of market in Oman itself. Sophie, of course, detailed, the opportunities, particularly in the food sector, and what our panelists in the discussion have said, and which I take is that the important thing is that the food sector is becoming an enabler for downstream products in the food sector. This is very important. From our traditional products, rice, vegetables, frozen meat, oil seeds, and all those things. I mean, if you are getting into food processing, that is a new, I feel an important opportunity for investment that is coming up. Particularly for the products that will emerge from the further processing of the basic materials that you are exporting. You are importing into India, and of course, opening up of new markets. The third country opportunities, as somebody mentioned. And also Sophie said it, East Africa. GCC, of course, yes, GCC is your own. I mean, your value-added products of Indian companies manufacturing there do have a ready market in the GCC. But what is interesting to note that far down to Brazil or to US and near home in East African countries, that you find an opportunity. I think that is something very important, and which Indian companies should look at. Particularly, again, I would mention the enabler for downstream products in food sector, which is very important. So I think with these few words, I would like to thank again all the panelists, Robert, Sophie, Sami, and our other panelists, Ibrahim, Red, my colleagues in FICCI, and of course Amy, who anchors it all the time, pushes us, from wherever she is stationed right now, to make it as interesting as possible. So with these words, I would like to thank you once again, all participants, panelists, and we look forward to the next webinar on a more important and interesting topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gautam. And again, thank you to everyone, the panelists, presenters, and our most important people, the participants and the business community from India, for joining us today. Food for thought, Sohar's Strategic Advantages, a partnership between Sohar Port and Free Zone and FICCI. And as mentioned by Mr. Gautam, this is part of a series, and we have a couple of other more sessions or webinars. And that's why we'd like to hear from you and your feedback on this session. So we'd like you to take a couple of minutes from your time before logging out. The link was posted to you in the chat from our colleague Luma. It's a form that you can put in your feedback about the session, and we'd like to hear from you on how can we improve the future ones as well. So until then, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.